What is the best budget microphone for gaming? There are a lot of options out there, but today I want to take a look at one that might be particularly interesting if you play on PS5. This is the Fifine AM8, a USB and XLR dynamic microphone designed for gaming and streaming. And paired with the Fifine SC3 mixer, you could turn what looks like a pretty simple budget setup into something that's surprisingly flexible. But the real question is, should gamers buy it? Having RGB, knobs, voice changers, and a bunch of other features sound great, but if the microphone sounds bad or it seems complicated and it doesn't actually make sense for gamers, then none of those features matter. And I want to make a note, for the whole video I will be using this mic. So in this video I'm going to test the audio, compare USB to XLR, look at the build quality, try the mixer, test some of the voice effects, and most importantly, answer whether this is actually a good budget microphone setup for the PS5 for things like party chat, Discord, gaming, and also content creation. So let's start with the microphone itself. This is the Fifine AM8, and the first thing that stands out is that it gives you two ways to connect it. You have the USB for simple plug and play setup, and you also have XLR if you want to connect to an audio interface mixer. If you are somebody who wants to use this microphone for things like gaming or the PS5 party chat, you can pretty much use the USB connection. But if you want to start eventually streaming, like YouTube videos, or you're gonna have a more advanced audio setup, the XLR connection gives you room to expand. Fifine lists the AM8 as compatible with PS5, and the USB setup is fairly straightforward. Connect it to the console and select the microphone as your input device. So right away, this isn't a microphone that you necessarily have to outgrow. You can start simple and build around it later. It's also important to understand how this microphone works. Some of the microphone's onboarding features include the RGB lighting, the mute control, the knobs, monitoring functions, but it does need the USB to power on. If you are using XLR, those functions are instead handled through the equipment you're connecting the microphone to. And interestingly, if you connect both USB and XLR at the same time, the XLR will take priority, so the microphone gives you flexibility, but with the exact features, it depends on how you connect it. Since this is a budget microphone, let's talk about the build quality, because sometimes when you buy budget-friendly stuff, you could definitely tell where they have cut some corners on some stuff. And I will say this microphone is not pretending to be some expensive studio microphone, which I think is a good thing. I do think it gives you more of a premium looking setup though, especially when you connect it to the boom arm. But when you're handling this microphone, you could definitely kind of tell it's a budget product, but it's not terrible. The question is whether you get what you're paying for. And I also think the RGB is a fun little addition. Obviously it doesn't make or break your experience, and it doesn't make your voice sound better, but it is a gaming microphone, and if your entire setup has lights, I personally would understand why somebody would like the RGB. So now for the part that matters the most. Right now, this is the Fifine AM8 through XLR mode. This is what you've been listening to this whole time. And depending on the equipment you're using, this is where you can potentially get more control over your audio. This is the Fifine AM8 in USB mode. The AM8 is an end addressing dynamic microphone, which means you could speak into the top of the front end microphone rather than the side. Now switching back to XLR, again, I'm testing the microphone at the same distance and volume. The distance can definitely make a difference, and that's why I also think the boom arm is worth considering. Another thing that I wanted to test was how the AM8 handled background noise, so let's cut to that real quick. This is me typing on my keyboard to see if it gets rid of any of that clinking, tapping noise, and this is me testing with gaming sounds in the background. If you're buying this for the PS5, you probably don't want to hear everything playing in the background, and it seems like this does do some noise reduction, but of course, if you're in a very loud room, it's not going to get rid of everything. Now let's talk about the other part of this setup, which is the Fifine SC3 audio mixer. And this whole thing is so interesting to me because I have a production background. Usually when people hear the word mixer, they think of something that's just extremely complicated, like imagining a giant audio board with dozens of knobs, routing options, confusing menus, and a setup process that requires watching a 45-minute YouTube tutorial. The SC3 is extremely simple. You have the physical controls right in front of you, sliders, monitoring controls, microphone controls, you have effects, and visually I think it's fairly easy to understand what everything is supposed to do. The SC3 also supports XLR microphones and has a combo input that can accept XLR or 6.35mm microphone connections. You can connect a headset to the 3.5mm connection, connection, which could be useful for somebody who wants to improve their audio setup without completely replacing everything that they own. The SC3 includes multiple voice effects, including voice changers, pitch options, and simple pads. Fifine lists 12 auto-tune pitch options, 6 voice changers, and 4 customizable sample pads. So I'm gonna put my headset on and test out some of these voice changing things, which I'm really interested in hearing.
So this is the male voice.
Female voice.
Robot voice. That sounds interesting. The monster voice.
Baby voice.
And the elder voice, which I'm not really sure how this sounds like elder, but hey.
Then they also have this electric mode thing, which this is the electric voice. I'm not gonna sing for you guys today, but I would probably sound a lot like T-Pain or something. Now we're back to normal. Do you need any of this? Probably not, unless you want to like entertain on a stream or something, or just sound funny for somebody. But I do think you could have a lot of fun with it. The thing that I like the most about this combination is that it is very flexible. You can use the USB as a simple microphone. You can connect it to the PS5, a PC. You can move to the XLR later. You can add the SC3 mixer later. I like that you can connect your headset directly to the mixer so you can actively monitor it. And I like how the mixer is designed for multiple connections rather than just being limited to one thing. One limitation worth knowing, the SC3 is not a mixer that physically separates gameplay audio and voice chat audio with independent hardware faders. They specifically say that it cannot be done with the mixer itself. And also the SC3 does not support USB microphones as microphone inputs. So if you're buying it specifically for an XLR setup, that's something to keep in mind. You can also connect compatible equipment through its different inputs and outputs, including external audio sources and speakers depending on your setup. So I definitely would not call this a professional mixer, but that's kind of the point here. It gives gamers and beginning creators access to physical audio controls without completely throwing them into this intimidating setup. So should you buy the Fifine AM8? If you're looking for a cheap microphone just to talk in party chat, I think this is what you need. It also works really well if you are beginning content creation. You could spend less and get a microphone that technically works. But if you want something that works as a gaming microphone today, and potentially something that's part of a larger content creator setup later, the AM8 becomes way more appealing. The official Fifine store currently lists the AM8 at around the $58 range, although pricing and sales can change. They also have a few different bundles with a higher price range, and I do think that's where the value conversation really comes in. So my biggest takeaway is this: the Fifine AM8 is not trying to be the best microphone in the world. It's trying to give gamers a more affordable way to get into an audio setup without forcing them into an expensive ecosystem. And for PS5 gamers specifically, I think the ability to start with a straightforward USB connection and then expand toward a more advanced setup is what makes this thing worth considering. And of course, the SC3 is a good experimental part of the setup. It's not essential for everyone, but if you do enjoy having the physical controls and all these different effects and whatnot, it is a fun thing to have. But thanks so much for checking out the video. Are you guys looking for a new way to bump up your setup? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Pause for now, play forever. AK out.